You can draw an analogy here with Fir'aun and Musa. That in the home of Fir'aun, his own enemy Musa grew up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Imran, they, the kafirs, they plot and they plan, but Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. Indeed, the comparison between Fir'aun and Yazeed has been drawn by, of all people, Allama Masudi, the famous Sunni historian. He says that there are many similarities between Fir'aun and Yazeed, and then he concludes, Allama Masudi says, that of the two of them, Yazeed is worse than Fir'aun. Why? Because Fir'aun only oppressed his enemies. He oppressed the Jews, the Hebrews, but with the Egyptians, he was just, he was good. He gave them money, they prospered. Yazeed oppressed everybody. Muslims, non-Muslims, Syrians, Arabs, people of Medina, people of Mecca. And in this sense, he says, Yazeed was more unjust, more tyrannical than Fir'aun. Salman. So they say there is a difference of opinion when we know there is not. They say Allah be pleased with someone who we know is the killer of Hussein, the burner of the house of Allah. And then here is the icing on the cake. Here is where they really play their rhetorical games. Fine, they said. Yazeed is a fasiq. He's a transgressor. Yes, he may have killed Hussein and his family. Yes, he was a tyrant. Yes, he burned Medina. But ultimately, we shouldn't curse him. There's no point cursing. That's what we hear. What's the point of you people cursing and cursing? Who says to curse Yazeed? Again, very shortly, very briefly, 3 proofs of why we can curse Yazeed, why we should curse Yazeed. From the Quran, from the hadith of Rasulullah, and from the writings of the Sunni ulama. Let us begin with the Quran, Surah Al-Isra, Surah number 17, ayat number 60. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to our Prophet, we granted the vision which we showed you as a trial for men. And likewise, we showed you the cursed tree in the Quran. We put terror and warning into them, but it will only increase their transgression. Brothers and sisters, Imam Fakhruddin Razi in his Tafsir al-Kabir and Hafiz Jalaluddin al-Suyuti in his Dur al-Mansur, both of these great Sunni alims, write in their tafsir of the Quran that this verse concerning the cursed tree was revealed to our Prophet after Rasulullah had a dream in which he saw Bani Umayyah, like monkeys, he says, Rasulullah said, like monkeys, climbing onto his mimbar, climbing down from his mimbar, climbing onto his mimbar, climbing down from his mimbar. And they say that on the basis of this revelation, the cursed tree in the Quran is none other than Bani Umayyah, whose leaders are, of course, Abu Sufyan, Muawiyah, and Yazeed. These are the cursed monkeys, the cursed tree, which the Quran refers to. Salawat. And then there is the hadith of Rasulullah. Allama Tabari, who I mentioned before, the Sunni historian, writes in his Tariq that one day in Makkah, Rasulullah shortly before he died was sitting, and into the street came Abu Sufyan riding on top of a donkey, being pulled by his son Muawiyah and being pushed from behind by his young grandson Yazeed. Rasulullah looks at the scene, Allama Tabari says. Rasulullah looks at the scene. He says, may Allah curse the rider, the puller, and the pusher. May Allah curse the rider, the puller, and the pusher. All 3 of them. Rasulullah's curse, not my curse, not Imam Zainul Abidin's curse, not Imam Hussein's curse, not Bibi Zainab's curse, not any of our Ayatullah's curse. Rasulullah's curse, as narrated by Allama Tabari. Indeed, Ibn Athir, another Sunni scholar, says in his book that Rasulullah many times said to his companions that whoever attacks, whoever frightens the people of Medina, Allah, His angels, and all Muslims will curse them. We all know that it was Yazeed who attacked Medina. In fact, in 1804, we also know that the Saudi family, the Wahhabis, attacked Medina and burned it to the ground. So Allah's curse be on Yazeed, Allah's curse be on the Wahhabis. And finally, most curiously of all, we looked at cursing in the Quran, cursing in the Hadith. Now let us look at what the Sunni ulama themselves have said. For Allama ibn Hajjar Makki, I mentioned him a few moments ago, he loved Bani Umayyah. He loved Muawiyah. He wrote a biography on Muawiyah. He wrote a book called Al-Sawaiq al-Muhrika, in which he curses Shias. And yet, in the same book, he declares, it is unanimously agreed that it is permissible to curse those who killed Hussein, those who ordered his killing, those who allowed his killing, and those who are pleased with his killing. He then adds a little extra sentence, but let's not mention Yazeed by name. He says it's best not to mention Yazeed by name. He can't bring himself to take that final step, but he says, curse the people who killed Hussein, let's just not mention Yazeed. That's fine, good for you. Allama ibn al-Jawzi, one of the greatest classical Sunni scholars of all time, he wrote 700 books, which the Ahl Sunnah still read today. And yet, curiously, they avoid reading one of his books, which is entitled, this is a great title, A Refutation of the Adamant, Stubborn Bigot Who Prevents People from Condemning Yazeed. That's the title of the book. And in this book, he says it is permissible, it is encouraged to curse Yazeed explicitly by name. Allama ibn al-Jawzi, their scholar, not ours. He then goes on to write that my teacher, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, one of the founders of the 4 Sunni schools of thought, the Hanbali school of thought, a hero in Saudi Arabia today. The Wahhabis love Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And yet Ibn al-Jawzi says that my teacher also allowed the cursing of Yazeed. He narrates from Salih, son of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who says, my father Imam Ahmad once said to me, I asked him a question. I asked him whether we should love Yazeed. And my father said to me, my son, does anyone who believes in Allah, can any person who believes in Allah love Yazeed? He says to me that no one should hesitate on sending curses on a man who has been cursed by the Quran, on a man who has been cursed by the Prophet. I said to him, but why? And my father, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, said, is there any mischief? Is there any evil greater than this murder at Karbala? This is the verdict of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So Ibn al-Jawzi, Ibn Hanbal, Ibn Hajjar Makki, all of these Sunni scholars say, curse the people who killed Hussein. And yet we have a man who is not even a scholar himself, who knows what happened to his medical career. He turned to preaching, and he now declares in 2007, may Allah be pleased with him. This is the ridiculousness, not just the sadness, the ridiculousness of the position we find ourselves in. Indeed, some would say, and by the way, he has not justified his comments in any way. It's been 6 weeks, and we've not heard a peep from the normally verbose Dr. Naik. Not a peep. Indeed, Maulana Zakir of Toronto has published an open letter on the internet challenging him to a debate, any place, any time. Maulana Zakir has written that Dr. Zakir Naik loves to debate so much with Christians and Hindus, but is he ready to debate with me, his fellow Muslim, on this subject? No answer from Zakir Naik, surprisingly. In fact, it would be a waste of time for such a learned alim like Zakir Bakri to debate with this know-nothing Wahhabi propaganda mouthpiece. You and I could take him apart in a few moments. Our children who have read one book, one hadith on Imam Hussein, could tear him apart. Which is why he stays silent. Such is his ignorance, such is his deceit. In fact, some would argue that he's such a know-nothing. Why waste our time with him? You might say to me, why? Why should we waste time rebutting him? It's the past. We all know Yazeed's a baddie. Let's move on. In fact, I was on a Sunni chat room. So what?